Hello and welcome again to the Brothers Get In podcast, the show on how to create more prepared, more resilient, and more responsible human beings. I'm Stuart.
And I'm Anthony.
As always. And we're here today to talk to you about EDC.
EDC, what do you carry?
What's in your pockets? Before we jump into that, we have been on hiatus for 2 weeks. I have had messages from people, which is good. Like all three listeners, including Bulge, is out there. They're worried, and it's good to know that people worry about us when we're not there.
Excellent, good to hear.
But we're back. We're fully highly caffeinated
and ready to go.
Been eating dark chocolate pepitas, so if you can hear crunching in the recording, it's just that. And yes, there is background. You might have just heard a child screaming, but there it is.
There you go. Perfect timing.
Right on cue.
It's like you can train them.
Yeah. All right, so, bro, today we're talking about EDC, aka everyday carry. What's that about?
I reckon that's an interesting term. And look, to be honest, when I first heard it come out, I just said EDC, and there's lots of videos and talk about it out there. And it's like, you just carry stuff in your pockets. Like, what's this EDC thing? It just sounds so ridiculous.
Got to put a trademark on it, right? It's, who cares about it if it doesn't have some sort of trademark on it?
True. But it is one of those questions that pops up. It is probably second most popular question that I ever get asked, besides, Doc, what's this rash?
Sorry about that, but I don't have answers yet.
What is your everyday carry? This is what we get asked all the time, I guarantee it. And it's a variable question. But we want to start off with some light principles and some examples of what we carry every day around us, with us, on us, and maybe even some of the reasons why we do it as well.
So, like when I think everyday carry, if I take a step back here, this is about being prepared for what life's going to throw at you. So not being caught without an essential piece of equipment that you might need in, let's say an emergency. But really, it doesn't need to be an emergency. It's just everyday sort of stuff. Like what do you carry in your pockets that's going to aid you, in an emergency, but also just for every day?
And again, going back to, look, this new term of EDC is an interesting thing. I mean, I think back to like the old farmers and things like that. They always had all this stuff in their pockets, and they didn't have a term for it. And we used to get taught or trained in the Scouts of things that you would carry you were told to carry in your pockets at all times. So it's not a new concept at all. It's just evolved maybe a little bit, and over the years, just with technology, which we'll explain a bit more today.
Not a new concept, and like I've been obviously delving into, not obviously, but for those who don't know, I am very interested in Viking Age culture, and I've been delving into that a lot recently. And I read in this book that they talk about a person always being armed. They always had a form of self-defense, which was usually an axe on them. However, I was looking at this and I was discussing this with a blacksmith friend who specializes in Scandinavian Viking Age axes and knives. And he said the sort of stuff that we commonly think of as Viking axes aren't necessarily tools of war. So the book was saying they always had a form of self-defense on them, but in reality, they always had an axe on them because they did everything with an axe. They could do everything with it. And immediately I thought, this is everyday carry for a Viking.
I think the newer version of that I could say is the first thing that comes to mind with everyday carry is the pocket knife. Every old farmer had a pocket knife attached to his belt, and it was the first thing you always had on your belt at all times was your pocket knife, and it fitted a multitude of sort of uses.
So we've got stuff that obviously, we're talking everyday carry. Quite often we think about stuff in our pockets, but when you and I are discussing everyday carry, it's not necessarily just what we can keep in our pockets. We discuss different levels. So do you want to just explain what we mean by levels?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, yes, there's what you carry on yourself, on the person, walking around the street as probably as a bare minimum that you'd walk out of the house with. Level up from that and you think about, right, I probably need some more equipment. What's in my backpack? Most of us carry a day bag for some of you. It might be a fanny pack. Fine. We won't comment on that. But
I have one in the car right now. I've actually got two of them.
I'm going to disown you. So your backpack, your satchel, look, your briefcase, whatever it may be that you have in your hands for a little bit of extra equipment, particularly if you're traveling, going to your workplace, that would be your next level up from there. And what do you carry extra from there? And the next level up is, I sort of think, is my car. I travel a lot in my car from place to place. And I think, what do I store in there everyday carry that gets me out of trouble most of the time? Now, I guarantee most people won't know where their spare tyre is, where the jack is for their car, and a lot of other devices that just help get your car moving again. But they should be considered as an everyday carry for yourself and for others. So I think of everyday carry as these different levels, but I also think of it in sort of a bi-level nature of what helps me and what can I have on me to help others.
Help me become an asset, not a liability in a situation.
How do you value add?
So level 1, level 2, level 3, as a rough, you can name it whatever you want, I guess, but on the person, in a bag, and in the vehicle. So let's start off talking about what sort of things would you carry in your pockets on the person for that level 1?
Sure. So in my pockets, look, in the old days, it used to be told in Scouts, make sure you got your 40 cents for a phone call. These days, I don't really need that so much more. And as far as I understand, actually, payphones are all free now. And the other people you see use them as drug dealers, so they can't be tracked. But
I actually walked past one the other day that was ringing, and I was like, I should pick that up.
No, you shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't touch that. But these days, look, we all carry phones in our pockets. So I think my number one carry is my phone. It's my communication device. I use it if I want my family to know where we are. We have like a central sort of tracking device. So if I get lost, whether it be here or overseas, it allows me to look up information, allows me to have a translator on it. It's probably my most versatile device, is having a good quality phone.
Yeah, like if you go and look up EDC, quite often you'll see prepper circles, and a lot of, especially American-based stuff, they are really talking about self-defense. So they go into firearms and things like that they're carrying on them, which, is neither here nor there. It's fine. Obviously, we can't get away with that in Australia. But I see them miss out on or glance over a lot of really essential stuff. And one thing is, I very rarely see people go, this is my phone and this is what I use my phone for. Mm-hmm. It's kind of just a given, but it really shouldn't be a given, because the phone is actually a very versatile piece of equipment. Like any technology, I don't think it is something that we should solely rely on, because in my experience, whenever you absolutely 100% require technology, that's when it fails you. But it is handy, and when it works very well. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, your phone, it is a safety device. It can be used to help others, for calling for help. And like I said, figuring out how to use your phone effectively and what apps to have on your phone and utilising those apps, make sure it's in service and updated, is really important. Look, beyond my phone, my next thing I usually carry is my wallet. Need a source of funds. I know we live in a cashless society these days, so yes, I've got to have my cards. Just, again, that's a backup, because yes, we all have cards on our phones these days, which you can use to tap and run. But you need that actual physical card if your phone fails you. I have a bit of cash in my wallet because, well, sometimes your cards fail and you may actually need that cash from day to day. The alternate reason I have cash in my wallet is when we see people that are worse off than me down the street, always make sure I give them a few dollars. So I have some small bits and pieces in there to give them to help them through their day. As I said before, everything I carry, I try and have a dual purpose, not just for myself, but for others as well.
Good on you for doing that. I don't, but good for you.
You don't,
yeah. I'm the same. I actually put a little bit more reliance on cash, and I try to use cash more. I don't always succeed in doing that, because I can tap my phone and I can use cards and things like that. And sometimes it's easier to. Sometimes I just want to do that to expedite the process. But wherever I can, I try and use cash nowadays. to encourage people to keep using cash. But as recently, and I can probably name a couple of other events that have happened recently, but as recent as a couple of weeks ago now, we had the what was that critical failure that happened? There was an update that CrowdStrike.
Mm-hmm.
CrowdStrike.
Yeah.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I'm blanking
Something
on the
like
name. Anyway, people even in my local town were kind of freaking out because they couldn't get access to cash and people couldn't pay with cash, people couldn't pay with cards and they couldn't go to the ATM to get money out. So there was a bit of a block that was going on. I live in a small rural town, so people are, I would think, more prepared for something like that because we actually have that happen semi-regularly when one of the cell towers goes down, which happens. And when that goes down, no one can tap their cards anymore.
The old note of IOU doesn't cut it?
Well, yes, it does, if you're friendly enough. But, in our small town, if you're a local or somebody who lives there, I think you'll be okay. But we do get quite a bit of through traffic from the major city near us. And those major city folk, they're not going to be okay.
No.
If they said, can I just pay you back? The shop owner would be like, how about no?
When I come through next spring.
Yeah. So, that's an encouragement for me to keep cash. And it's something that I recommend people do is just have that bit of cash. Even if you think you're not going to use it, have that extra 50, even a 20 or something in your wallet. So if you do get stuck, worst case scenario, the phone lines are down, you can't pay on your card, you are about to run out of fuel, $20 of fuel will probably get you home from wherever you are.
And it works well. I remember in the old days, you always had to have enough cash in your wallet to get a taxi home. That was the thing. Mm-hmm. Or make a phone call. But when you travel, always have cash in a wallet, maybe a spare wallet. Bribe money if you need to get out of an awkward situation.
Mm. Now, both of us being from the ex-special operations background, I shouldn't say we are ex-special operations. We also, at times in our life, I actually never did this, but you may have come across it or at least known somebody who did, carried gold bullion.
Mm. Gold coins. Get you out of trouble money. That and a note, a handy note. Again, notes.
Yep.
Would come in handy. But that was the standard operating procedure for certain periods of time in certain areas of the world, is a handful of gold coins, give one out when you need it to get you home if you are isolated and in an emergency. It fits that same principle. Got to have some sort of cash, some sort of means on you to get yourself out of danger. And cash is a good way to do it.
Yep, I've certainly had to use that out in the world in the past where things have got a bit dire for me and had to pay a facilitation fee or maybe a toll or a fine, if you will.
I like that, facilitation fee. It's very...
Yeah, read between the lines of that one. Cool. All right, what else?
Next thing is, the next thing on my list is my window breaker seatbelt cutter. I carry that on me at all times. You think about, I know this goes more towards the area where we've got a car, but even walking around the streets, if you come across a child, a dog in a car, something like that, you need to break that window. Seatbelt cutter is something less offensive than a knife that you can carry everywhere. Every now and again, you might get pulled up at the airport, but they generally let it through, to be honest.
Yeah, and like it would cost, I don't know, what, $10 for one? So if you do lose it, it's not the end of the world.
Get a new one. But that is literally a life-saving device.
I do have one too. Mine is very brightly coloured. Let me check. Just in case you're interested. I can't even read where it's from now. Rescue Me.
That's the one.
RESQME. Rescue Me. Yeah, really, really handy thing. So it's on my keys. So it's sitting there in the ignition when I've started my car. It's bright neon yellow. So if something did happen, I can see it. It's located within arm's reach. I could get myself out of the vehicle. But yeah, it's on my keys, so they're always in my pocket. So I can use that in emergencies that don't necessarily involve me.
Yeah. Next one on the list would be my multi-tool. So I think this is a modern day version of your pocket knife. You know, your single or double bladed pocket knife you carry around. Yeah, it's got a blade on it, but it's got a whole lot of other things that come in super handy. Various other sorts of blades, scissors, different sorts of screwdriver tip heads, pliers. So there's a whole range of things. So I think getting a good multi-knife, something that's not too big, that's bulky, that sort of weighs you down, that's light enough for you to put in your pocket that you almost don't know it's there and carry it around from day to day.
Yep, I agree. You may not know this about me, but I love knives. And I love carrying knives, especially
Really? I
Sure.
would never be able to tell by the amount of knives.
I do own many knives, and I love fixed blade knives. But carrying a fixed blade knife on my hip is somewhat frowned upon
In polite society.
Yeah, so I can get away with it in the rural town that I live in, but when I start rolling around the big smoke, you start getting funny looks from people.
Yeah.
So I generally just carry a Leatherman's. And yeah, there's certain things that I'm always looking for on that Leatherman. So any multi-tool that I own, I just happen to like the one that I've got at the moment. The pliers, a good sharp blade, scissors, screwdriver. They're probably the essentials for me. There's a few other things that are good to haves as well.
Yep.
But those things there, probably those four things. In that order.
Yep. And I think have a look around. It's a personal item, so there's lots of different variations you can get out there. I mean, look, personally, I like the smaller the better with just the minimal items on it, as Stu just explained. But if you feel like you need a flip-out sledgehammer, by all means, you get that one with that flip-out sledgehammer on it.
And the kitchen sink. Cool. What else?
Hanky.
My
hanky. Hankies are awesome.
All right, old man.
Very, very old school. Taught to me by Dad.
Yeah, it sounds like
always
something Dad would do.
Always carry a hanky was the advice. So, and I found it super useful. So, your hanky, look, yes, you can use it blowing your nose. You can politely give it to someone else to blow their nose and keep it. Don't get it back. But it is also in aid of you injure yourself. You injure a finger, you can bind it to the other one. Small wounds that you can wrap it around. You can tie it up like a mini triangular bandage and use it for different sort of wound helping. And for protection of your hands, for grip. There's a multitude of things. So I do always carry a hanky.
Snot rag in your pocket. Good to know.
Yeah.
I'm not quite there on the hanky. I've thought about it many times. I've bought hankies. I've bought like these tactical hankies that do other things as well. I've had them. I've got rid of them. I'm not over the line yet. But
nice, good quality hanky. Have a few of them. Have them as disposable items that you can give away. It's always much appreciated. Maybe when you get a few more white hairs in your beard, you might be up for it.
Yeah.
But I'm there.
Good to know. All right, anything else? Any other medical stuff? Because you kind of broached there into hanky being medical stuff.
Yeah.
I can think of one that I carry on my keys is a little CPR mask.
I think that's interesting. Yes. If you're going to do CPR, wear a mask. I'm more of the thing, look, unless you're family or someone I love, I'm not giving you CPR.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. You will get pushed on the chest for sure. And look, as far as I understand, the studies show that does well enough.
Yep.
It's just jumping up down the chest. But yeah, for years, I agree with you. I used to carry one of those. I don't do it so much more because the only people that I'm giving mouth to mouth is loved ones. And that's it.
That's a fair call. One other thing that sort of jumps out in my mind that I carry, and this is more when I've been overseas in more austere environments that I'd always have in my pocket is a little alcohol gel thing, the disinfectant sort of stuff.
Yep.
You know, that shit that everyone had a massive hard on for in COVID and people got addicted to it and like wiping over their faces and stuff. I don't carry that in Australia, but quite often when I was overseas and especially if I was meeting with people out in the public, you know, and I don't know what they've been touching or what they've been doing, and there's illnesses and sicknesses and stuff like that overseas that I have never been exposed to before. That was one thing that I carry.
For sure. And look, I absolutely agree. I have those little gel containers everywhere. So the reason I didn't bring it on the person, because it's one of those things that I usually transport in my bag. I have one in my car, and if I'm getting out to go to somewhere where I think I need it, then I'll stick it in my pocket, but I don't usually walk out the door with it in my pocket my day to day. But it is somewhere reachable.
Cool. All right. Well, I can think of very few other things that I would carry on me. Headphones, but I don't know if that's really needs to be chucked into EDC. Apart from, like, if I wanted to listen to something and have my hands free.
I think, yeah. But me, that probably goes, again, I think we're crossing into the border now quite easily into the things that I carry in my bag.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into that then. Level 2, let's get the bag. First off, what type of bag are you carrying? I'm imagining you carry a leather briefcase, big thick one that's like a doctor would carry with many jars and ointments in it, or a satchel like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, you've got it. Got it right in the nailed it right in the head. Look, I love the leather case, but usually the day-to-day it's the satchel. So the satchel goes everywhere with me. I've got a slightly fancier version of one that I can carry and it looks almost like a briefcase, but it's got that ability to, I can strap it to myself if I need to on the run and go. And I carry that satchel everywhere, and I think it's a great bit of kit. I do have a backpack that I used often, but I think if you said my number one day-to-day bit of kit, in fact, I literally do use it every day, is my satchel.
Cool. I generally go the backpack. I'm more of a backpack person. I think that's just in my mind. I think what would happen if I had to run and jump over a fence or something like that. That's kind of in there. But I don't know. I just find backpacks comfortable, easy to use.
Yep.
And I've worn them for years and years and years. So I take the hit and look like an overgrown 14-year-old going to school, and I wear the backpack. That's how I roll.
Cool.
So what have you got in your satchel?
So in my satchel, right. So let's expand on that a little bit. Now I'm going to push a little bit further. So we started off with our phone. So now in my satchel, I carry a battery, a spare battery, because that phone is possibly going to go flat. I carry some sort of charging device for that phone, because without the phone, without charge, it's a useless brick. It's not even as useful as a house brick. From there, probably a little bit more on the medical side of things, some Panadol, some ibuprofen, some Band-Aids. Just very simple, small things to get me through to the next point of care.
Yep. Yeah. I carry the power bank. Also, I've actually got two, I think, in my bag at any given time. But then the next thing when we start to broach into medical sort of stuff is what I call the coughs, colds and sore holes kit, like a tiny little kit that I have. I've actually got mine down into a Altoid can size, the little mint cans. I've got like Band-Aids, a little bit of, what's that stuff that disinfects and it's orange?
Betadine?
Betadine, yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, the gel, you usually use the sterile gel. That does just as good, but Betadine's good.
Yeah, I think for keeping down on size and weight, it's quite good. And then, some ibuprofen and paracetamol sort of things. Always handy, always come in handy, especially when we're going to headache. I often say, actually, headache's probably my least tolerable ailment. I really think that I could do better with a broken leg than I could with a headache. I'm just crippled with a headache. I just can't deal with them.
Look, yeah. Admittedly, headaches can get pretty bad. They distract you. I mean, all pain's kind of distracting, but it's hard to... There's not much you can do about the headache unless you take something for it.
All right. What else you got in there?
What else have I got in there? So I have my notebook, pen, and probably a backup pen, because you got two, you got one. When you got one, you got none. So always a backup.
I've got my pen and notebook and pen is Write in the Rain, which is, neither here nor there. It's not like an essential thing you have to have, but I am outdoors a lot and I do tend to get things wet. So
for those that know, it's a waterproof notebook.
Yeah.
It's a brand name. You can get unbrand named ones, but the Write in the Rain are very good, very well known, used extensively throughout the military, throughout the world, as a waterproof sort of paper writing notebook.
And I've got the US Ingenuity version of a pen in the Space Pen, which is apparently a pen that will write in space, so it doesn't require gravity. It's got some spring ball bearing thing going on. I don't know. And the Russian Ingenuity version of a pencil.
Yeah. So a pen, a pencil, and probably a permanent marker I'd add to that list is just to have at all times.
Yep.
It just covers all your sort of writing dimensions and communication dimensions in that area. What else? What else would you have in your backpack?
I've generally got some sort of snack, some sort of food. Like even if it's just a little bit, it might just be a bar or something like that, or some jerky that I've got hidden away, squirreled away, something that's going to last a long time, like a protein bar or something. I don't have to really think about it. It can sit there for 6 months and, one day I'll be tooling around and go, man, I'm hungry. Oh, hang on, I've got this. And in a pinch, in an actual emergency, it's something that can kind of sustain you and keep you going.
Yeah.
I usually carry a water filter bottle, so either my Life Straw or Grail water bottle, so I can always access clean drinking water. And of late, I've been kind of digging the electrolyte sachets.
Yeah, I was just about to say that the old... I carry the hydrolyte tablets.
Yep.
The little fizzy tablets. And look, they are great.
Yep.
Give you a little bit of energy, make you feel a little bit better. And if you're on a long expanse where you haven't got food, it'll get you through.
Yep. Yeah. I've gone... I use them quite a bit, but I've also been using another brand, which is fancier and costs more.
Yeah. The thing is to that, look, we think about hydration often as just drinking water. It's not. It's about getting those electrolytes and things in as well. You need that with the water.
The other thing that I think about when I've got, when I'm packing my bag is other clothing. So I've generally got a beanie and maybe some form of change of clothes. Like usually if it's cold, it'll be a long sleeve merino wool thermal top. If it's not cold, it might be, if I'm wearing pants that day, I might chuck in some boardies. That's shorts for those who aren't fluent in Australian. Or, maybe a spare pair of socks or something if I know I'm, going to be kicking around for a long time. So, for example, I've got my backpack on me if I'm traveling overseas, and that goes with me on the plane. I'll always have some spare top, like a t-shirt or something like that, because I will end up stinking, and a spare pair of underwear and socks that I can get changed if I'm transiting through somewhere and I've got a bit of time.
Yeah. Look, similar. I mean, yeah. Always make sure my t-shirt's a woolen t-shirt. Big fan advocate of the wool clothing. It keeps you warm and dry. It stops you getting super smelly. The only other thing I'd add to that is my toothbrush. Always have my toothbrush in my bag. And look, it can be one of those $3 ones that you buy. Used to get it at the airport. I don't know if you can anymore, but at the chemist, sort of travel toothbrush. And just because I hate having unbrushed teeth.
Yep, very handy. Getting into some more serious medical sort of stuff, I actually have a tourniquet in most of my backpacks whenever I'm going. There's a tourniquet in there somewhere. What's your thoughts?
Tourniquet's a great idea. I have tourniquets in my bag, in my car, dispersed everywhere.
Generally, there's like two kinds of people in the world. There's those who have seen, used, been around tourniquets, i.e. those who probably had some sort of exposure to the global war on terror. And then there's everyone else who thinks it's a naughty word and these things should not be used ever.
You should have them everywhere.
Yep.
You can never have enough tourniquets, they say. So, yeah, tourniquets. My kit is a little bit more expensive, but it's still only small. It basically fits in my hand. It's not like, because I do carry a bigger kit in my car, which we'll get to in a minute. So the one I carry in my bag has a tourniquet, has a couple of little gel pads for plugging holes around the chest, and a triangular bandage. Most things I can look after or treat in an emergency with those three things.
All right, well, let's jump into part 3 now, level 3, in the car.
The car.
I think it's time to step it up, and I get to talk about my bum bag.
Excellent. Tell us about your fanny pack.
So, I mean, really, if you're thinking about it, you've got stuff in your pockets, you've got a backpack. In between those, I would actually maybe classify a bum bag. And the smaller bum bag that I have is for when I'm wearing shorts that have no pockets, and I do want to carry a phone and wallet and multi-tool and things like that.
Please don't wear your bum bag and a backpack at the same time. It kills me. People do that.
But I have a more extensive one. It's actually it's almost like a hiking bum bag.
Hiking bum bag?
Yeah, and I've kitted it out, and it's in my car as kind of in case of emergency, like dire emergency, have to strap it on and hoof it home. That kind of, the shit has hit the fan, as it were.
I can see that. Look, it almost sounds more like a satchel to me. I just hate the bum bag concept. Just from people growing up in the 70s and 80s, just wearing those horrible things with short shorts around the place.
I love it.
And the horrors of being in the Defence Force and having those bum bags just whack you in the back when you're trying to fire a move in place. Just bang, bang, bang.
The bongo drum sort of webbing. Yeah.
That was horrible.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm glad they're getting rid of that. They're canning it,
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What are gunners going to do? How are they going to carry their double front?
I have no idea if that's going to work in chest webbing, but yeah, apparently that's the go.
Yeah. There was most people listening to this would have zero clue. Probably we're speaking Swahili to them at the moment, but you had to be there, I guess.
So back to the car.
Back to the car, right? Okay. So actually, just on a note, that kit that I made with the bum bag, the one that I'm saying is hiking, is actually probably more built around hunting. Yeah. So it's got things like a tracking device in it, GPS in it, a rain jacket, a way to boil water, flint and steel for a striker rod, ferro rod for starting fires, et cetera, et cetera. It's that kind of, I could live out of that thing technically for a couple of days type thing. So that's what I was talking about there, in case anyone was curious. But in the car, let's start talking about in the car, because we're getting a bit serious now. Seriouser, I guess. I think of a car as a force multiplier. So in the simplest sense, do I need a car? Maybe not. But for me, if I'm working in the big smoke, as I do, and I need to get home, which is 80-something kilometres, and I have to walk that in an emergency, that's going to take me probably a couple of days to do. Whereas in a car, I can do it in an hour. So it multiplies what I can actually achieve. And likewise, I can't carry a whole heap of things to sustain life or to look after myself comfortably, at least. So the car is a platform in which it allows me to carry these things.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that notion of how much you can carry is the biggest thing in the car. So you have to think about how you're going to outfit your car with the stuff that you need without making it too cumbersome. You don't want to have your car no longer useful as a passenger carrying device. So you need to have a think what is in there. A lot of the things that carry in the car, look, I would say Stuart talked to about earlier is like clothes. So a spare set of clothes, the shorts, some extra shoes, some cold weather equipment in the back of the car ready to go. So I'm prepared for those sorts of things, those changes when they happen. Other things I'd carry in my car, I carry a more extensive medical kit. Now, particularly, the same with Stuart, do a lot of travelling in my car into sort of remote or sort of rural regions. So my medical kit has to be more extensive, and it's built around my skill sets as well. So always remember that. Your medical kit can only be expanded as far as your skill sets expand as well. So there's a lot in there, and I won't go into that today, but I just carry a big kit in the car. I carry more tourniquets. Tourniquets are everywhere, strapped around the car. And again, some more food, some more water goes into the car as well.
Yeah. I've generally got another water filter bottle, which I try and keep filled in the car somewhere. I've got spare water as well, just in case, I'd need to throw water in a radiator or someone else's radiator. Or, in a pinch, I could also drink that water. Medical stuff, tourniquets. I'm sure, I don't know how many tourniquets are currently in my vehicle, but I wouldn't be surprised if you searched my vehicle and found 4 at least. The other medical stuff I have in there, I've got different layers of medical. I often think about it like this, similar to what we're talking about, level 1, 2, and 3, like the medical sort of stuff going up in medical emergency level. So there is a larger kit that I have, which is just more of a working kit. It's more of like something you'd have in your house, that kind of everyday stuff, plasters and roller bandages and tweezers and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But then I've got one that I've created that was specifically around, I thought, what injuries do we see in car accidents? Now I'm going to fit out a kit like that. So it's larger. It's not something you can carry around, easily. But if I came across a car accident, it's something that I could pull out, dump on the ground, open up, and start hopefully treating people.
Yeah. My kit's like a full backpack type kit. Plus or minus a stretcher, like a fold-up, roll-up stretcher in the back. So exactly that. So if I come across a bad accident, or if I end up in a bad accident myself, at least I've got a way to treat myself and others.
What about keeping the vehicle operational?
Spare tyre. So make sure I know where that spare tyre is. Make sure I know where the jack is. Anything else I need to sort of keep that car running. Extra water if you blow your radiator hose, and some gaffer tape. Gaffer tape's essential. If you take a hit inside of your car, you may be able to kick it out a bit, but you're going to have to tape it together to make it usable to get to your next point of call. And I think that's an underrated bit of kit for your car to take care of it.
When you mentioned that, actually, that set off a light bulb in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, I actually always carry in my vehicle, at least if not in my bag sometimes, 100-mile-an-hour tape, gaffer tape, cloth tape, many different names for essentially same sort of product. But 100-mile-an-hour tape, I think, and zip ties.
Yep. If
you can't fix it with those two things, then I'm pretty sure it cannot be fixed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm talking about anything. Equipment, a bag strap bus, if you can't tape it together and zip tie it together, then it's probably beyond repair. Shoes, I have gaffer taped together shoes and continue going. I have zip tied together pants. I have actually created almost articles of clothing from 100-mile-an-hour tape. Vehicles, human bodies.
It is unstoppable. Get yourself a good quality roll of gaffer tape too.
Yep, and maybe I'd throw in there super glue.
Yeah. Well, the super glue goes in my med kit because I use it in place of stitches and sutures sometimes.
Yes, I'm yet to learn the art of suturing, which is something you're going to actually teach me, and we'll do a video on that soon.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I rely on super glue.
Excellent. Good alternative.
Yeah. So, anything else? Anything else you keep in your car?
I'd keep... what else do I keep? I've got my machete in the back of the car. Again, it's good for if I need to cut wood out of the way, if I come across wood, if I need to use it for leverage, if we come across injured animals that need to be taken care of. Has a multitude of uses. I keep that in the back of the car for those kind of uses.
Yep. I, depending on what I'm doing and where I'm driving around, I kind of also I've got a ute, and so I usually keep the tray empty. I've got a slide-on aluminium camper sort of thing that I can put on there, and that adds a whole different dimension of stuff that I can carry. But I've also got a series of trunks that I can put on and sort of strap down. So if I'm traveling around more wooded areas, I generally throw in my smaller chainsaw and the stuff to safely operate and maintain that chainsaw. Just in case. I have had this happen when I lived rurally, like way out in the sticks, where I was driving down a path to, I think I was coming back home to where I was living, and a tree had come down. And if you're caught there without a chainsaw or something, then you're not going anywhere.
You're stuck.
You're done. Yeah. Or you're going to have to walk somewhere, get the chainsaw, walk back. So yeah, something like that where it, if you're thinking about what your actual use is, this is not very useful if you're just kicking around the city, unless you're expecting, I don't know, zombie apocalypse to happen, then chainsaw could be very handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But apart from that particular occasion, just thinking about what sort of things you might have use for and what sort of emergencies or threats you're going to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, and also carry some tyre flattener can. So it's just like a gel-like substance you can buy. And if you get a bit of a flat and you haven't got a way to pump up your tyre, at least it's put enough pressure in there to hold it up. And I carry a bit of length of rope in there as well, which I've used on a few occasions for pulling people that have come off the road and pulling them back onto the road just with the car and a bit of rope.
Yep. There is a mountain of stuff that we're not talking about here, that we're not going to delve into when it comes to actually cars, to maintenance, to recovery, to forward driving, to all sorts of stuff like that. Because we will end up doing an episode on that, specifically on vehicles and how to check vehicles and how to operate them, all good things to carry and stuff like that. But it's definitely something you need to think about, because if your vehicle, say, gets a flat tire and you haven't checked your spare tire and it's not there or it's flat, then your vehicle is immobilized. That whole platform is now null and void. So it is worthwhile. It's something you need to think about. If you get bogged and you don't have anything to recover your vehicle, then the vehicle is null and void.
So you need a way to get it out. And probably the final thing I'd probably add to this, and like Stu said, there's probably a whole lot of list more that will go to that, is a fire extinguisher. Make sure you've got a fire extinguisher in your car. For yourself, for other cars, for anything else that you come across, it's just a handy device to have ready to go.
Fire blanket too is a cool one. That's something that I threw in there after the 2019 fires and fighting them. That was something that I went and invested in, was buying a good woolen fire blanket, which then also doubles up as an emergency kind of sleeping shelter if need be, if you ever get caught somewhere.
Yeah.
Which I have in the past.
I mean, yeah. Look, that's about the most of it that carry on today about what we've got in the car for that level 3 sort of thing. I mean, it would be situation dependent. So knowing where I'm travelling, why I'm travelling, and like all of these layers, it very much situation dependent on where I'm going and what I'm planning to do next. But I think today what we've covered is just some of those sort of basics, and at least sort of get your mind thinking about what would I be missing, what could happen that I need to have on my everyday carry.
Yeah, and that's really, the best way to think about it is, okay, what do I do day to day? And I often describe how I think or plan as we have the mundane, ordinary world, but then we also have the emergency world that we're thrust into sometimes, that we have to deal with. So, sure, what do I have to carry with me to deal with the mundane world? And then what's also going to be useful if I was thrust into an emergency? And on that too, one thing I quite often recommend to people when you're thinking about EDC, when you think about packing your car, your backpack, your pockets, is don't just set and forget this stuff. I fall into this trap where I just I go, yep, this is awesome, this thing, and I put it in the car, and then I forget about it, and then I'm cleaning my car out, 9 months later, and I find that thing. I find this GPS, which is totally dead and needs to be updated or something like that. Or, I totally forget about, I find something that I've been carrying and I'm like, I have absolutely no use for this. My thinking has shifted. I've trained in a different way.
Yeah.
I don't need this anymore. I need to update this. So it is really something you really need to be critical of. It is something that you probably shouldn't just listen to two brothers on a podcast and go like, oh, I'll just do what they do, because it needs to be fit to task.
It needs to be individualised to what's happening in your world.
Yeah. And what you're doing. So if we're saying like, oh, just chuck tourniquets in, and you have never even seen a tourniquet and you have zero clue on how it works, that's useless.
Absolutely. By the way, I think someone should count how many times we say tourniquet in this podcast.
Okay.
And I think someone should do 5 push-ups for every time we say tourniquet. And I want to see how many you get.
I'll tell you what, if somebody sends us a message with the correct count of tourniquet uses in this podcast, I'll send them a tourniquet.
Sounds great. So
Yep.
Tourniquet. And all these ones count too.
Yeah. All right. I think that's enough for today. We'll wrap it up there. So thank you very much for listening in. I hope you got something worthwhile out of today's podcast, having a bit of a chat, a yarn about everyday carry, about the sort of stuff that you might want to consider carrying on you. Any final thoughts for the folk out there?
No, just stay ready, stay prepared, and I'll see you next time.
All right. See you next time.